Hey everybody, this is Aurathas, and welcome to what I hope will be the first of many Warhammer 40k book club streams. For now, we're just going to chill for a little bit, wait for a few other people to get here, and then we shall get started. So yeah, for those of you who are not aware and who might be hearing about this for the first time, for our first book club, we decided, or rather I decided, that we're going to do Imperial Creed, which is basically I think chronologically, the first, I don't know if it was the first published, but chronologically, it's the first Commissar Yarrick novel. And yeah, I just picked it up in that omnibus that's listed right there, that you can see the image in the background. So yeah. Give it a bit of time. I am a bit late with the stream as well, so. That live streaming notification. So, yeah. Like how it's like streaming, no game. It's like, well, yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. So, yeah, it doesn't look like there were a lot of people that were waiting for the book club. Ah, well, it was worth a try. So let's see here. So yeah, for those of you who are here, have you guys read this novel at all, or? Because I do have some questions. Well, that's a weird sound coming through my headphones. What the hell? Hmm. Ah. Well, I can talk a bit about the book if you'd like. I will have to say, it would probably be a bit better if we had a few more people involved in the discussion. But I will say, I really did like the novel, but yeah, if you haven't read it and you think you might be interested, I'm pretty sure there are going to be spoilers, Stahor. I mean, if you don't mind the spoilers, I'd be more than happy to, you know, continue on. Ah, well, there you go. Well, okay. Well, then I'll just go ahead and get started. We can talk about it a bit. And if you do have any questions or want me to elaborate on anything I've mentioned from the book, then please let me know. That goes for anybody else in the chat or watching as well. Oh, that's not a problem, Kieran. That definitely takes priority. So, yeah, one of the first things that actually got me, and I would want to know, like, I have a few questions for those. Okay, yeah. But yeah, one question I did have is very early in the book, Yarrick mentions two things that kind of got me a little curious. One of which was he basically said he came out of the Schola Progenium as a stormtrooper for a while, and then later on switched over and took the oath to become a commissar. Now, I gotta say, that was a bit odd to me, because last time I checked, you were basically placed in the most suitable role when you graduated from the Schola. You didn't really get to choose or pick later on. And there was even a line there that implied that, you know, Inquisitors also came from the Schola at times, which that one I took issue with simply because it's like, didn't, like, Inquisitors are usually drawn from other ranks that have a lot of experience. They don't take them from basically childhood to adulthood and then be like, here we go. So yeah, it was a bit odd. I mean, that was just one of, to be fair, that was just one of two things that I felt was a little strange about the lore. Like, felt like it might not have been getting along with the rest of the lore. For example, the other one was, he mentions very early on as well that the events of this planet that he was going to was centuries before his trip before he ever stepped foot on Armageddon. So I'm really hoping that there are some other... Yeah, exactly, Stahor. The Kane books did make it look like that the program you study was decided very early. And yeah, it just seemed a little odd that he was able to jump back and forth, like he just went all the way through. Because I figure, when you think about the training regimen they put you through in the Schola, commissars are not trained anywhere near the degree that a stormtrooper's trained to. At all. Like, I like the commissars, and aside from some of the more famous commissars, I imagine your average stormtrooper, if they decided to, could beat the ever-loving hell out of your average commissar. They're not gonna, because they're quite loyal and brainwashed, but that was the thing, though. It's like... So I don't imagine they would spend all that time training you in all this combat and then be like, oh, okay, now if you want to, after you've already been out in the field and you have experience as a stormtrooper, let's take that away and turn you into a commissar. That felt a bit off. And yeah, like I was saying, the other thing that kind of threw me off was, and these are the only two lore issues I have with the book, so if you guys are trying to decide if you're going to read the book later on or read more of them, these are the only two lore issues I found. The other one was, he did say that he was centuries away from going to Armageddon, but most of his fame was as a result of Armageddon. So he did some great stuff in this book, but not enough to warrant like rejuvenate treatments that would keep him alive for centuries until he got to Armageddon. Now, I'm hoping some of the other books may shed light on that, but I doubt it, considering the next book in the series is The Pyres of Armageddon, when he is actually on Armageddon. So, I don't know. It seems like they just left it wide open. All right, see you then, Kieran. And yeah, you're right, Stahor. The Inquisition, that would actually make sense if they were looking for fresh acolytes or followers, and that may have been what the book was implying when the Inquisition took people from the Schola. Just the way it was phrased in the book, it made it sound like it was like, you graduated from the Schola and like, congratulations, you're an Inquisitor. You're not a servant of an Inquisitor. You're not a companion. You're not an acolyte. You are a full-on Inquisitor. Get to work. So I think it might have just been kind of a throwaway line that was put in the book, and it kind of didn't mean it that way. But either way. So yeah, basically, to give you an idea for the plot, these guys are being sent to a planet that there are rumors of a rebellion. This one noble lord has rebelled. It is Yerrick and I want to say Cyril. These two inquisitors are there with not inquisitors, two commissars are there with the Lord Commissar Rasp for their first job. And he's basically teaching them to observe and learn. Don't just make snap judgments, which I really like, because one of the biggest issues I've always had with a lot of 40k factions and characters is they kind of come off as a bit one-dimensional in Wooden. You have inquisitors that are like, I don't really care about the truth. I just kind of have a gut feeling. I'm going to murder you. I'm going to murder this planet. You have like the Sisters of Battle that are just fanatics. You have commissars that are all just gun happy. They don't care about anything else. It's like, oh, you're running away. Oh, your uniform is wrinkled. Oh, you dropped something. Bang, you're dead. So I kind of like the path they took with the Inquisitors in that Yerrick is not a... Yeah, Yerrick is not of that type of commissar. Neither is his leader. So, his mentor. Basically, he does try to see more, and he tries to take more into account rather than the strict rule of, you know, their creed, their oath, whatever. So, I do kind of like that. Also, to your point, the Stormtrooper versus the Commissar. I think you're right that Stormtroopers tend to have more of a focus on group range combat, but there are Stormtroopers that are trained in melee personal combat as well, so... You know, I think it also mentions that some of the best commissars in melee combat have all developed their own style, it seems like, or trained extensively outside of the Schola, so... I don't know if there's a lot of books that really focus on the Schola. I would really like to. And you're right, all the named commissars are actually reasonable people. The trigger-happy one does seem to be a meme, but honestly, a lot of the lore, a lot of the novels kind of feed that meme, though, let's be honest. Like, if the book is not focused on the commissar as the main character, almost every commissar you meet's a bastard. Where you can actually be like, yeah, no, I understand why there's that line in the lore or the codex that mentions there's a high rate of turnover when it comes to commissars due to not so friendly fire. So yeah, basically when they get to the planet, they make their way toward this rebellion that they think is just going to be a small rebellion. They are being led by... You already know something bad's going to happen early on because their general is one who's like, his entire tactical doctrine, which is fairly standard for the Imperium, is when you go to war, your tactics should be match what your enemy has plus more. And he uses that phrase a lot, plus more. So when he's launching his troops and he's like, and my plus more is going to come from this direction. That kind of stuff. He doesn't care about, and he even mocks more intricate or complex tactics, which is, you already know something bad's really about to happen. So, yeah. So as they're going towards this, to subdue this Baron, yeah, the Baron, they're wiping the floor with him until Yerrick and a few of his squad members start having some bad feelings because the enemy is fleeing and they unleash what is basically a cobbled together Titan. That the company that Yerrick is attached to manages to bring down the Titan thing. But that sets the stage for a bunch of stuff that leads to some of those caricatures I was talking about, like the one-dimensional characters. So, leading up to that, I forgot to mention this. One of the dudes in the company that Yerrick is with is showing... what what's the word? He's showing doubts because he's never led a unit before. He's new to his job. This is his first combat drop. And yeah, basically, Yarrick is trying to decide if he needs to shoot the guy or not. And what I like is that Yarrick took a few things into account. The first thing is he asked the commissar, is like, are you ready? The commissar asked the officer, sorry, are you ready? And the dude is horrified when he tells the truth, and he goes, no. And so Yarrick is considering shooting him and then goes, are you willing? At which point the guy says yes, and Yarrick's like, okay. In his head, he's like, okay, I'll let him survive, and tells him, then lead. And Yarrick spends a good chunk of the rest of the book wondering if he made a mistake there. And frankly, he didn't. That dude and his company are with Yarrick to the end. But I did like that he was like, okay, the dude's blunt honesty saved him. If he hadn't, I'd have shot him. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, I do like that. So anyway, the thing that leads to... Yeah, I would imagine, Horace, that would be the first time for any new officer, but speaking of like a lot of the commissars that you read about in 40k lore, most of them would have just shot him as soon as he said no. So, yeah. And actually, Stahor, when you say that no plan survives contact and that it worked for the general well enough for some time, it actually did, but he also had another general that was fighting alongside him that had the more nuanced tactics. You don't really get much detail about the general beyond his plus more strategy, because by the time they deal with the Titan, everybody's dead. Like, not everybody, but like the general dies. The Titan basically has hands. It's a 4-legged Titan that also has arms. And these arms, every finger on the end of the hand is a weapon. Like, there's one hand that all 5 fingers are an Earthshaker cannon. And it uses that and targets the general's position. So, yeah. So, yeah. It was an interesting setup. And this is what leads to Yarrick's first real encounter with the Inquisition. Because after they blow up the big Titan and they find their way into, what's it called? When they find their way into the home base of the rebelling Baron, and they eventually find traces of recent heresy and human sacrifice and all kinds of stuff, and they find that the Baron himself, basically his top half of his body had been cut off and enshrined in an obelisk thing inside the Titan to make him like a crude princeps. So, which was, this book is pretty gory. Some of the descriptions they give you of what's going on, you're just like, oh, okay. Not so sure I needed to hear that, but okay. So basically at this point, they are heading back to the main city where their Lord Commissar basically goes, hey, you guys need to be careful. This city is all about politics. You never know what's going to happen here. Be a political officer. You need to figure out how to run it, how to navigate this crap. And so when they get to the city, they're given all these awards by a cardinal of the ecclesiarchy, who Yarrick immediately hates, because every part of this massive cathedral that they go to, all the hymns that they hear, all the speeches that are given are not glorifying the emperor. They're glorifying the cardinal. And it seems like it's been going on for generations. And so he basically has to hold his tongue every time he talks to the cardinal. And here's where the author starts doing something I really like. He starts foreshadowing things that are going to happen in the future of Yarrick's career. Not in this book, but in the career. So, for example, he mentions that, while I have a bad impression of this cardinal and really, really hate this cardinal. I'm just going to smile, nod, and be the good little soldier and try to keep the peace. Which is immediately followed with a line that I love that goes, I don't do that anymore. Because the story's told from the first person perspective, because as Kieran mentioned earlier, it's kind of like the Cain thing. This is about him reminiscing from, later in his life. So basically, if you liked the way the Cain stories were told, this is pretty similar. And yeah, I love that line because one of the reputations that Yarrick has is he's blunt. He doesn't take shit. He'll call everybody out on their shit, especially later on in his career. And let me go ahead and take a look at what you're posting, Stahor. Well, in this case, he wasn't sentient, basically. It was weird. It was like he was a mindless beast. So, yeah. But those are awesome pictures. Thank you. But yeah, so like I was saying, later on, that like in his later career, Yarrick just doesn't give a shit. He'll call out a space marine without a problem. He'll call out an inquisitor like he's just an average dude. Like, nah, fuck you. This is what we're doing. This is what needs to happen. You're full of shit. So I love that there are those little foreshadowing events like that. Like there's one point like where you can see even more of this when he runs into an inquisitor from the Ordo Hereticus who is interrogating the troops that... Well, that's actually a good point. Mindless beast, the Titan spirit, machine spirit took over. The Princeps did not have enough will to resist. That's probably true then, because, I mean, obviously it was a chaos machine and there was no Mechanicus influence, and they didn't have an STC there of any kind that could help them build this. It was basically a bastardization of a Titan. But then again, the Baron was also not trained to be a Princeps, so... even a bastardized one, weak machine spirit probably could have fucked him up and taken over. But yeah. So yeah, like I was saying, basically, Yarrick gets called on by one of his soldiers that says, hey, what did we do wrong? There is an inquisitor, and he's taking our people. So basically, every person who was with Yarrick when he was... what was it called? When they took down the basically bastardized Titan, was being taken by the Inquisitor and essentially tortured. Like, they destroyed it. They didn't enter the Titan. Well, Yarrick did, but none of his troops did, but they were still all being tortured. And that was because when they killed the Titan, it made a shrieking sound that the book never tells you what the shrieking sound was, but just that you could almost hear words in it. And this Inquisitor was 100% convinced that all the soldiers that were within range of that knew something about that word, knew something about that voice. And he was going to find out, even if he had to torture them to death. And if they died, oh well, I'll move on to the next one. So here we do have one of those basically one-dimensional caricatures, basically, where it's like, it's just the standard, frankly, rather stupid Inquisitor. So it's like, yeah, so basically he's alienating all these troops. He's basically destroying morale and everything just because he has a hunch that someone's keeping something from him. And I understand that's his job, but it's also like, come on now. So basically, this is another awesome part. Basically, Yarrick walks into the tent, and the Inquisitor looks him dead in the eye and says, I don't appreciate being interrupted, Commissar. And Yarrick just looks at him and says, I don't particularly care. Which threw the Inquisitor off, because he's not, obviously, Inquisitors aren't used to being told off. And that's just what happened to him. So yeah, I like that he's getting more and more blunt as the story progresses, because he does. He is blunt with pretty much everybody he meets. Later on, he meets Sisters of Battle, same thing. But yeah. So I do like that. Like I said, he's not one-dimensional, but it seems like a lot of the other characters become that way. Like the cardinal who runs the place, you get the feeling, at first you get the implication that he is a very, he's corrupt. But as the story progresses, he becomes what we see in almost every 40k book where a planet is under siege. The governor slash cardinal is a whimpering, mewling coward, and protects himself over anything else. Doesn't care about the planet, doesn't care about his city, doesn't care about his people. He cares about himself. And it doesn't help that he basically set everything up. Basically, the cardinal wanted to have the entire planet following him. He wanted an iron grip. He wanted to be the lord of the planet. So he kept raising tithes on the barons until they went bankrupt, and then he seized their lands, which is basically what led to the barons rebelling and then subsequently being open to the idea of chaos. So, yeah, it's an interesting story. And yeah, there's a lot of moments where, again, as I mentioned, that the author likes to use foreshadowing of future events in Yarrick's life. So, like, another one he does, he mentions that there's a massacre. It was necessary, according to the book, but there was a moment where he and his troops had to kill a bunch of civilians that had gone rampaging due to some bombs going off, everybody being trapped in a town square. So they basically turned into like a herd of, frightened animals and just started to stampede everywhere. And they were heading straight towards the command structure of the regiment, so they had no choice. They had to kill them. And here's where he mentions even more of that foreshadowing happens, where Yarrick says, I can't say that I still think about or dwell on this event anymore, because I've been a party to much larger and more severe slaughters and massacres in my life, that they have driven this one from my consciousness and my dreams. I don't dwell on this one anymore. So, yeah. And there's a recurring theme that also I really love that also talks about his future when he's dealing with the orcs on Armageddon. He doesn't ever say Armageddon, but he goes, throughout the whole book, he mentions, I have to be a symbol. I have to be a symbol for my troops. I have to stand strong, and be a symbol for the troops. And then he says something, like in the book it says, this was the beginning of a lesson that would take a lifetime to learn, and that is that I also had to be a symbol to my enemies. And that's really cool because, as you guys know, in the future when he's on Armageddon, the orcs are bloody terrified of Yarrick, or as scared of Yarrick as they can be of anything. He is, they don't they don't mess around when it comes to Yarrick. So, yeah. On Inquisitors, you started to read the Shira Calpurnia novels. Yeah, I still haven't read those. They've been recommended to me multiple times. Detective Politics series. Yeah, that is pretty unusual for 40k books. So, there's an Inquisitor character. He is treated as a boss, but not like some shadowy figure. But yeah. Now, one of the things I didn't really like about the book, though, was the author. It seemed like the author was trying to foreshadow, got so used to the foreshadowing crutch, basically, that he started to foreshadow later events in the book. And I really didn't like how he constantly did that. Like, the Yarrick and his crew would get into a fight. And before, at the end of the chapter that fight was going on, you'd get a line that was like, but this was nothing compared to what was to come, or our true foe had yet to land after like 3 different major fights, which I really didn't like that he did that, because it takes a lot of the impact away from the fights. It's like, oh man, this is a major fight. Let's see how this plays out. And then they just throw it out. Oh yeah, this isn't really the main one. Yeah, this isn't really the main one. He does it so many times that you're just like, okay. He takes a lot of the impact away from it. So, yeah. So yeah, that kind of bugged me. And there were a few plot holes, like later on when the barons basically make it known that they are chaos worshippers and they've been preparing for this rebellion forever. So they have a lot of manufactorums on this planet where they've been making artillery pieces. And they basically unleash hundreds upon hundreds of basilisks and griffins on the capital city while the Imperial Guard's there. And they have to be ferried in from all over the planet to siege the city, which kind of led me to believe it's like, okay, the Imperial Guard knows there is a heretical cult and an ongoing potential rebellion. Where were the scouts? And honestly, where was the overwatch from the ship that they had in orbit? It's like, these are columns of hundreds of massive artillery pieces flowing across the planet for no reason except to gather around the city. Nobody gave the order. They were just coming. Nobody saw it. So that was a bit off. And so that got me. And then, I don't know, there were a few moments like that where it's like, that makes no sense. Like, at one point, the Inquisitor, the Ordo Hereticus, tries to give an order to a group of Sisters of Battle who have brought a reliquary to the Cardinal. He tries to give an order to them, and they look him dead in the eye and say, "You have no authority over us. Piss off." Which, I know the Sisters of Battle have a lot of freedom compared to the Imperial Guard, but last I heard, they were the militant arm of the Ordo Hereticus. Meaning, even with the Cardinal there, he has authority over them. So, that part was really weird to me. And this wasn't like some high-ranking lady in the Sisters of Battle. She was commanding like 10 Sisters of Battle. She wasn't like a massive... Yeah, she wasn't like a massive, high-ranking leader in there. Well, yeah, they're the militant arm of the ecclesiarchy, but they're also listed in, as the chamber militant of... Yeah, that's what I was going to say, with the Ordo Hereticus in like all the codexes that I've read about the Inquisition. So yeah, it kind of threw me off. So, yeah. So, yeah. And then we also saw a whole thing again, and this always drives me nuts. I have to point this out after every novel I've read, where the Imperial Guard is involved with Sisters of Battle and the Adeptus Astartes. Again, there's that feeling there, and they even mention it multiple times in the books, that they just look down on the Imperial Guard, and the Imperial Guard is just like, they feel sorry for it. It's like, oh, you're useless, you're crap, whatever. They even insult them directly a couple times. And it's like, just once you would like the Imperial Guard to be like, okay, you know what? Fuck it. You do all the work yourself. We're going to put down our guns. Have fun. Let's see you take on the millions of opponents by your damn selves. What, there's only a couple hundred of you? Well, damn, that fucking sucks. And the reason it drives me nuts is, while I know that the Sisters of Battle are fanatics, while I know that the Adeptus Astartes frequently get an inflated sense of themselves due to their augmentations and everybody calling them the Angels of the Emperor, they're not dumb. They are usually pretty damn well educated. So, I don't know, it's kind of like, you would think they'd be smart enough to know, okay, look, no, they're not as strong as us individually. No, they're not as augmented. No, they don't have as good equipment as us. But there are billions of the bastards doing work we can't do. Like, we could call in an entire, like, the entire chapter of Space Wolves, for example. That's not going to help if we're fighting millions of dudes. We can call in a whole order of Sisters of Battle. Same thing. So again, you would think that, they would be intelligent enough to see that. And it bugs me in 40k in general that a lot of the leaders of the Sisters of Battle and a lot of the chapter masters, who you imagine have to have some semblance of intelligence to get to that level, don't see that and are just like, oh yeah, they're crap, we don't need them. Just treat them like slaves or treat them like, treat them like shit. I don't care. It's like, what the fuck, guys? So, yeah, that's something that always bugs me. I see, Stahor. So basically, they're like the Death Watch. They work with the Ordo Xenos, but they're Marines first and Inquisition arms second. All right, gotcha. Okay. But yeah, still, it still was like, I wish the lore would make up its mind, frankly. Because you get all these things where the Inquisitors and all these books are like, the Inquisition has authority over everything. Except when they don't. When there are factions that'll just be like, nah, we're not going to do it. Or individuals, not even factions, they're like, nah, fuck you, we're not going to do it. Oh, you're an Inquisitor? I don't care. It's like, they need to make up their damn mind in the lore. Because it gets a bit confusing. So, yeah. But anyway, as the story progresses and the city is attacked by all those thousands upon thousands of basilisks and griffin mortars and what have you, cultists start coming up from tunnels underneath the city. And Yarrick is tasked with going with a company of troops to seal these tunnels up as they can. And it's a big-ass city, so it's going to take a while. It might not even happen. They're probably going to miss some. They're well aware. So basically, they reach one of these tunnels, and they are ambushed by a large group of heretics. As they're fighting the heretics, a mortar barrage comes in. And his troops are broken. All of Yarrick's troops are scattered. They don't know what to do. So Yarrick has this thought. He's like, be the symbol. So he stands up. He gets into his heroic pose with his gun raised above his head. And starts, trying to rally the troops. And he starts laughing and making fun of the bombardment. How this will not shake, the true followers of the Imperium, blah, blah, blah. And what I love is, while he's doing that, he sees a mortar round coming for it, like coming to the area near him. And the thing, he doesn't know where, but he's holding his gun up, he's holding his sword forward, all that stuff. And the thing going through his head is, no matter what happens, I cannot fall. I have to stand through this explosion. And this is where, like, his legend starts. And he even says it in the book. He's like, and by some miracle or what have you, the mortar round that was coming in, the shell, crashed to the exact spot he was pointing. and he stood strong through it. And it just makes me laugh because it's like the start of his career sounds a lot like something, I mean, minus the cowardice, sounds a lot like something that would have happened to Cain. It was an accident, it was a fluke, it was luck that basically gave him his, you know, gave him his fame. And I loved that. Especially since Yarrick is a very, I do like the character, but he's a very serious individual. Well, that's what Yarrick thinks, and that's what the people around him think. But, and I could be wrong here, but isn't it pretty much the general consensus in the Imperium at this point? Well, in the lore, not with the actual characters, but with the lore. The Emperor is too out of it and too damn busy to actually be influencing anything. But yeah, there's a few moments like that throughout the series, throughout the book that just, it's like, wow, convenient. Because yeah, last I checked, the whole thing with the Emperor is that, one, he either has no consciousness anymore, he is just a husk controlling the, controlling the beacon from the Golden Throne. And the other one is that he is still sentient, but he's pretty damn busy to worry about intervention. So yeah, that was my understanding of that one. I mean, that would make sense. Emperor is making miracles nonstop, but the Imperium is so big that they're pretty sparse on an individual level. Fair enough. With the untold trillions that live in his Imperium. So yeah. So yeah, after that little fight, Yarrick and his boys end up clearing a few tunnels. And Yarrick has his first, oh my god, I'm going to have to shoot someone moment, like one of his own people. Because it's a colonel that they're on the cusp of sealing the main tunnel into the city. But another mechanical abomination built on a basilisk frame had come out of the tunnels. And Yarrick knew that if they fled, these troops would flood into the city and it would be all over from the tunnels because all their other troops were on the walls fighting the main advance. So basically, he's just like, okay, we can't flee. We have to stand our ground and find some way to destroy it. And this colonel was basically going, nope, nope, nope. And he was one of two colonels that took over after that plus more general had died. And he's like, no, we need to flee. We can't kill that thing. We need to run, regroup with everybody else on the walls, and then fight from there. And Yarrick's like, okay, well, we can't do that. And shoots him in the head. And proceeds to grab a detonation pack, jump onto the entity, strap the bomb to it, and jump off just in time to be caught by the explosion. He barely survives. But again, everybody's looking at him like, holy crap, the hero of the Imperium type thing. And even he's there like, okay, I'm not sure how I'm still alive, but okay. So, yeah, after that, you find out that the commissar that was mentoring Yarrick and the other guy, Cyril, he doesn't really play a huge part in the story, the other commissar. This commissar gets kidnapped by one of the cultists, and they're basically in this castle torturing him. Just straight up torturing him over and over again, trying to get him to break and turn to chaos. And yeah, it's pretty nasty. and you're trying to get to... So basically, Yerrick is going to try to... They don't know that he's still alive. They think he's dead. But he's over there being tortured in this remote castle, this remote fortress, from the guys who, like, by all the barons. So, yeah, so Yerrick decides that they're going to try to break out of the city and siege this castle, because they learn from the assistant to the cardinal, his little pet assassin who turned against him, is saying, look, we need to go and kill this. Like, this is where the Baron is. And the reason they decide they need to go and kill the Baron is in the basement of the Cardinal's palace, the first demons showed up and murdered a bunch of Imperial guardsmen. And it took the commissar, surviving guardsmen, the Inquisitor, and all 10 of the present Sisters of Battle to kill it. Afterwards, the Sisters of Battle are like, okay, we need to break this siege because we need to kill the heart of this rebellion now that there are demons here. And I do like that Yerrick did something that I know is a thing in the 40k universe. You just never really see it played out. He told all his people, it's like, to calm them down from having dealt with the demon. He's like, look, these heretics have sided with a Xenos race, a foul Xenos race. And when some of them are like, that wasn't an alien, it's like, what else could it be? Because, you know, the standard people in the Imperium don't have a clue what a demon is. So, yeah. So I thought it was cool that they illustrated that. So after some heroics involving a train loaded with promethium, explosives, munitions that breaks the siege, you discover that one of the guardsmen that has been helping Yerrick through this is probably a psyker of some kind, even though he doesn't know it because he has these visions. And he starts having a fit. He collapses on the ground. He's twitching, all this. And when Yerrick goes to talk to him, the guy mentions fire, get out of the city, we need to stop this kind of thing, and just broken up. And so Yerrick and the colonels the surviving colonels, order the troops to leave the city immediately to go lay siege to that castle. Which is when you find out what he was talking about. In his vision, he didn't know what it was, but when it flips back to the commissar that has been captured by the Chaos Forces, what's his name? The commissar is all happy, thinking like he's being tortured and all, but he's like, you know what? We won the battle, until the lead heretic, who was a childhood friend of his, or not childhood friend of his, they served together. Basically looked at him and said, look, it doesn't matter that you guys destroyed my army at the city. And when the Lord Commissar tries to argue, the heretic takes him outside and shows him something that Rasp immediately kind of freaked out in his head. Because, like, there's no way they knew how to make this. He doesn't even want to know what black market tricks it took to buy this. But they had a Death Strike missile. And as all the Imperial forces are leaving the city to go attack the, Chaos Stronghold, the lead Chaos heretic isn't aware that they're leaving, launches the missile, incinerates the city. The Cardinal's dead, the whole city's dead, there's nothing left but a crater and a mushroom cloud. So, yeah. So everything that they fought to protect is gone. Just completely fucking gone. Which is kind of messed up. Actually, more than kind of messed up. It's real messed up. So, yeah. Our heresy is backed up with nuclear weapons. Indeed, it was. So, they go to this castle, and they decide to... Yerrick faces his first moment where he has to think of his fellow soldiers or the soldiers under his charge, as tools rather than comrades or anything. And that's because as they're going up this valley up these cliffs, basically towards this city, another artillery barrage comes in with pinpoint accuracy because the heretics in the castle had cut off body parts and sacrificed a lot of dudes to get help from Chaos. It's like, yeah, the enemy's coming up this route. Just bomb the shit out of it. So Yarrick's first reaction when the bombardment comes in is it's so precise. He's like, I need to charge forward, because with the precision, they're not going to move. They're not going to fire any closer to themselves. So he ran ahead. Bunch of soldiers followed him. And then the soldiers started to turn around because after the bombardment, a bunch of heretics had come out of the not tunnels, but caves and out of the rocks and stuff, and started assaulting the surviving Imperial guardsmen. And Yarrick's company, or what was left of him, wanted to turn and help. At which point he ordered them, no, we have to turn around and we have to take the castle. So he was basically sacrificing all the other dudes so he could achieve the objective, which is honestly what the Imperium would do, but he struggled with it because he was sacrificing all these troopers that did nothing wrong. So him, Sisters of Battle, Inquisitor, and a group of 10 or 20. Yeah, probably about 10 troops of his own go to the castle. But they don't know, once they get to the castle, they don't know where to attack. It's a massive fortress that has never been conquered. So Yarrick has a bright idea. He's going to go talk to the trooper that has been having visions, even though he knows he's playing with fire. And so he asks the troopers, like, okay, where is the source? Where do you feel it the strongest? The guy looks at the castle, points at a place that's pretty close to ground level, and he tells the Inquisitor, I don't think I can go in there. And the Inquisitor's like, well, you're going to have to. We all have to. We got to do our duty. And when they get to where he pointed to start trying to get into the building, they basically find a grate, basically a sewer grate where all the waste from the castle's coming out, except at this point what's coming out is blood and guts and body parts, as that's where all the sacrifices, residual chunks were going out of, which is really freaking gross. So they cut it up, they go inside. And as they're going through, the Sister of Battle and the Inquisitor both separately approach Yarrick and go, you know something has to be done with this guy. We can't, you can't keep protecting him. He is clearly, something's wrong with him. Clearly, we have to do something. And Yarrick's like, I understand, but we also have this little matter of the heresy in front of us, so can we take the problems one at a time, please? So yeah, when they get into the place, they start fighting their way through heretics. They're very motivated because finally they have something they can kill. They're shooting, they're, busting out the flamers. They're burning the heretics like you're supposed to. Until more demons get summoned and his troops start to break. So he decides, I need to be the symbol again. So he starts screaming about Xenos again and rushing forward. At which point the Sisters of Battle tell him, take your troops, end this war, go up, because in the background there's a big platform where Lord Commissar Rasp is chained to it, and there are 10, not 10, I don't know, they didn't say a number, but the barons, all the corrupt barons are up there, and their leader is the former comrade of your Commissar, Lord Commissar. So the Sisters of Battle stay back because they're the only ones that really have a good chance of killing these demons, because every time they shoot, like the normal Imperial Guard shoot or cut the demons, they regenerate. And if you kill it, it splits into 2 smaller ones. I can't remember what kind of demon that is, though, because I remember it's in a lot of books and it's been in a few of the video games, most notably Sanctus Reach, where there's one big pink one. You kill it, it turns into 2 small blue ones, or smaller blue ones. So I don't remember what those are called, but that's what they're fighting. And only the Sisters of Battle are prepared and strong enough to kill them before they can split. So while they're fighting them, Yarrick rushes the platform, and all of the barons merge into one big thing. One big flesh demon thing, which basically the main baron is the face and the most of the structure, but all the other barons basically turn into his arms and legs and blades and dangly bits. It's weird as hell. And I don't mean dangly bits as like his genitals. I'm talking dangly bits like there's crap hanging off his arm and, that kind of stuff. And the way he dies, like they all charge the demon, and the Inquisitor gets off a couple needler rounds before he gets picked up and punched in the face with a fist that is bigger than his head with spikes growing out of it. And the book makes the spikes sound like they're quite long. He punches the Inquisitor in the face to the point where blood is splurting everywhere and launches the Inquisitor across the room. Somehow, that Inquisitor survives. Not sure how. That's like plot armor from hell. Anyway. So after that, the Sister of Battle gets up there and starts fighting him. He's fighting her. He launches her into the ceiling. She passes the fuck out. And Yarrick gets up behind him and shoves his sword through the back of the creature's head into his brain. And then proceeds to try to kill it. This is probably the most gruesome way I've heard anybody kill anybody in 40k. Proceeds to saw his sword and jiggle it around and wrench it around inside the dude's brain. Because it's constantly healing. So he has the sword in there and he's just doing that to kill the damn thing. Which it eventually does. At which point, you're like, wow, that was a massive battle. That was really cool. And then the author does his little foreshadowing thing again where he's like, well, our true foe had yet to arrive. It's like, God damn it. Really? That's right. Pink horrors, blue horrors. I've never heard of the brimstone horrors. And they didn't show up in this book either. They only went down to blue. But yeah, that's pretty much what you just posted is pretty much what that was described. Yeah. Except they weren't throwing around any, and I know they're ranged, they can throw fireballs and shit. They weren't ranged fighters in this book. They were straight up melee, biting people's heads off. Although with that picture and that big ass mouth on that picture you sent, I can see why that's the case. So yeah. So after Yarrick decides to go and help Commissar Rasp, he realizes that he can still hear chanting. And it's chanting a specific name, like Galthan or some shit like that. And a rift in reality tears open. And what sounds like a greater demon of Tzeentch comes walking up out there. And everybody just starts going batshit insane. He grabs Rasp. You don't know why he wants Rasp, but this whole time the book's been telling you that the heretics were not allowed to kill Rasp. They don't know why. You never find out why. But Yarrick is trying to rescue Rasp. Blows off the dude's arm with some bolter rounds, the demon's arm. The arm grows back immediately, but he does it enough to make the demon release Rasp. At which point the demon grabs and picks up Yarrick. And this is where I think one of the coolest parts of the book happens. So if you're interested in reading it, this is the part where I thought was actually pretty damn cool, was when the demon picked up picked up Yarrick, how did I put it? Apparently this demon could see into the future and foretell the future. And what he did, he called it a gift. When he held a person, like when he grabbed a person like that, he showed them things to come. And it's too much for the human brain. And Yarrick decides the only way he's going to survive is by not looking at what the demon's showing him. He can't stop it, but he can, he can think about it. He can't stop it, but he can try to consciously avoid registering what's happening. But some stuff still sneaks through. He gets these visions of this monstrous hulking figure that has more power and intelligence than it has any right to have. So pretty sure we can guess who that is. He also feels a burning pain in one of his eyes and in one of his arms, his right arm, and gets these feelings of this big monstrous maw on one of his hands, on one of his arms, and metal where one of his eyes should be. And this just sticks with him the whole time until the demon flings him away because he sees a Sister of Battle coming at him, and that's a better target. That's a better prize. And then he picks up the Sister of Battle and starts doing it to her as well, while Yarrick is trying to figure out a way to weaken the demon. Basically, the demon is surviving off of continued sacrifices that are occurring in the basement. So he looks down through this pit where the demon is getting this string of power, and he sees constant ritual sacrifices. So while the Sister of Battle is being basically time tortured, he's being given these visions, Yarrick goes to the edge with a rocket launcher that was dropped by one of his troops, launches it down there, destroys it, and then when the demon starts screaming, he just basically decides to be the symbol again, and everybody opens fire on the demon and kills it. At which point, the demon is screaming at Yarrick, has been screaming at Yarrick some weird lines. One of the lines is, "You are not his hand." And then a few minutes later, basically promising him, "You will never be his hand." And then just before the demon dies, or gets banished, whatever the hell you want to call it, looks at Yarrick and goes, "I was not allowed to see this, but it was not revealed to me, but it looks like you are his hand," and then dies. So I'm assuming it's talking about the Emperor. No clue. So, yeah. Now, my big thing that I'm actually curious about is because afterwards he mentioned that in the book, he mentions that he has, he still has flashes of the things he saw from the future. And the Sister of Battle didn't shy away from the future because she actually looked. In fact, Yarrick comments that when he first met this Sister of Battle, the leader of them, Setho, I think her name is, she has pale eyes with gold flecks. After her encounter with the demon, her eyes are completely gold. And when Yarrick talks to her, she tells him, he's like, "You looked, didn't you?" She's like, "Yeah." And the reason she looked is she said she has always wondered how best to serve the Emperor, and that she thought these visions would help. At which point Yarrick goes, "There's still such a thing as free will. We should act accordingly." And she doesn't agree or disagree. She just tells him, "We'll meet again one day," and leaves. Well, before she leaves, she tells him that a black ship is coming to collect his trooper who was having visions. And she said that she would keep him apprised of that trooper's progress if he happened to, if he survived whatever the name of the college is, or the training, or whatever the hell it is that psychers go through. The something psychana. I don't remember what the first word is. So yeah. Now my question is, this leaves a big question in my head. A lot of the lore talks about how Yarrick has done things that should not be possible. He has won victories that were considered unwinnable. So my question is, is all that a result of the visions he saw? Did more leak through than he thought? Like, does he find himself, like, could it be one, like, I know it's a pure theory. There's not going to be an answer to it, I don't think. But, like, my theory is, like, could he be involved in a major battle and then he just has a flash to those visions and is like, oh, wait, I could do that. Or I could do that. In his visions, he's like, this is how it played out. So here's how I counter it, or here's how I make it come true. Kind of curious about that. And you are right, Stahor. All this stuff that he went through, you'd have to have pretty major favor with the Inquisition to not be purified. It never mentions any penalties to Yerrick, just basically the Inquisitor that I told you managed to survive is now doing investigations, and Yerrick's like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he declares exterminatus on this planet before he's done. So, but yeah, no other mention of any potential penalty to Yerrick, which was really weird. But yeah, I did like that there was all this stuff that was showing him the future as to when he was on Armageddon. I like how it talked about his arm and his eye. But yeah, it does make you wonder if a lot of his future victories can be attributed to these visions. And the demon did try to call it a gift, so I don't know. So yeah, it definitely, I also have to say, the writer's style, aside from that foreshadowing where he, like, a few of those lore tidbits that felt off in the foreshadowing where it just basically minimized the current conflict to basically like, but the worst was yet to come, has yet to come, that kind of shit, bugged me. But for the most part, I really like this author's style. The battle scenes were played out really, really well. The characters, aside from, like I said, the one-dimensional aspect, it seemed, of the Inquisitor, the Sister of Battle had some character growth, but Inquisitor, not really. Eventually, the Sister of Battle got to the point where she got fed up with the Cardinal and the fact that he was a self-serving piece of shit and just started ignoring him and said, we're going to do what we need to do. Yeah. Better to stop a chaos invasion than protect your corrupt ass. And so I like that there was some, like, she had enough, she had enough willpower, enough whatever you want to call it, to basically be like, this is more important. I'm not going to be a hidebound to my orders, because that's something that's happened in many, many books featuring the Sisters of Battle, is that it's like, hey, you guys could turn the tide of battle if you came and helped us over here. Our orders were to guard this little one-block church over here. But no, we could really use you over here, and you guys could probably win the war if you came over. Nope, we're staying right here. And then that city falls, the church falls, all the Sisters of Battle fall, and it's like, yay, yeah, so he basically wasted his... Cool, thanks. It was a little annoying that the Sisters of Battle are like that, so I like that this one showed some growth and moved on from that. So yeah, but based on his writing style and all that foreshadowing stuff, I know I definitely want to read more. And I might look to see if the next book I have is the next one in chronological order, because I don't know, I'd like to read these books in chronological order rather than publication order. So if there is another one that takes place before he goes to Armageddon, I'd like to read it, because I would really like to know how his ass, after these events, was not, one, murdered by the Inquisition, or two, what deeds he did that were big enough to get rejuvenate treatment. Because yeah, he killed a chaos insurrection, but he also destroyed but they also failed to protect a major city, one of the biggest palace complexes in the sector, all the artifacts and records kept in it, all the riches, and the entire capital city are gone. So it wasn't really a victory. So it's like, how... This wouldn't get him rejuvenate treatment privileges, that's for damn sure. So I don't know. So yeah, interesting. So I hope there's another book or short stories or something that explain. It's like, what did he do that was important enough and big enough to give him that ability? That's a good point about the inquisitorial power, Stahor. But yeah, basically that's all I have for the that's all I have for the book. We basically covered the entire plot and my issues with it. I don't know if that helped you decide if you wanted to read more about Yarick or not. His personality was pretty cool. Like I said, he focuses a lot on be the symbol that the troops need to stay motivated, but yeah. Not a very humorous character. Honestly, there was no humor in this book at all. So that's, so I still prefer Kane. But yeah, I felt like it was well worth the read. And I really like getting some more information and backstory on a character that is a major fixture of the lore. Anyway, so, yep, with that, though, like I said, it's about all I have to say about the book and the book club for now. I will go ahead and discuss it with you guys on future streams if you guys would like to see more of the book club. We didn't really have much of a turnout today, but hey, we'll see what happens. If enough of you guys want it to continue, I'm willing to give it a few more tries. If not, that's completely fine. It was worth a shot anyway. It was a fun experiment in stream content at the very least for me. Although it did feel like an hour and 10-minute like book report. So yeah. And now I think we should switch over to that is very true. When you only have one man, Stahor, all you have is a reputation. And he has a hell of a reputation later on, that's for damn sure. So anyway, yeah. As mentioned, that will be it for the first episode of the book club. Let me know if you guys want to see more. And yeah, I'll see you guys for the next stream, which will frankly be here in a few minutes because we are so very close to finishing our Total War Warhammer 2 playthrough. We only have a few more turns. I'll have to check to see if Satisfactory is actually installed, Stahor. Do you have a preference, though? Because we don't have a lot of time left in Total War Warhammer 2. Let me check to see if I actually have Satisfactory installed. I might not, but let me check. I do still have it installed. So yeah, I'm open to either game. All right. Let me go ahead and get that started. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream real quick and then restart it. Just so I can make sure these videos split. Make it easier when I upload them to YouTube. So give me one moment to get the game started, and I'll be back in a moment. I'd say about 5 minutes. Not 5 minutes, probably a lot less. Either way, see you in a minute.